Okay, so without any further ado, I want to begin here. Let's begin with this question. Why not? I mean, there's no specific order. I'll try to get to all of that. Question number one. This past Shabbat, dear Rabbi, this past Shabbat, I had my first Shlisol Chala. I'll explain what that is soon. Please thank Hadar and Esther for a wonderful class. Hadar and Esther, if you're here, we thank you for a wonderful class. Now, I'm going to pin my video so that everyone can see me better. Okay. Now, can you please explain to us what the significance is of baking a Shlisol Chala? Fine. That's not so much a live question, but I appreciate this question really nonetheless. Shlisol Chala, you may have seen the advertisement about this in our newsletter last week. And yes, Esther, my wife, and Hadar did a wonderful challah bake, whatever, I think they called it a challah bake, a shlisol challah bake on Friday afternoon. Now, shlisol challah really means a key challah. Shlisol in Yiddish means key. Shlisol challah is a challah that has the shape of a key. You may have seen this. It's all over Facebook and other places. People posted it everywhere. Many of you, I know, participated in this class. Why do we do this on the Shabbat after Passover? Why do we bake a challah in the shape of a key? There's two reasons. Reason number one is because the first miracle that occurred to the Jewish people immediately after they left Egypt was what? The splitting of the Red Sea, fine. But after the grand exodus, after they finished with the Egyptian story, what was the first miracle? First miracle was the manna that fell from heaven. That's how they ate for 40 years in the desert. Now, the manna fell from the heaven, and it was, of course, after the supplication of the Jewish people and after God answered our prayers. Because it fell more or less during that period of time of after Passover, so we too, during that period of time after Passover, we ask God to open the heavens again for us and bless us with nourishment and bless us with livelihood. Now, the best way to remind God of his act of opening the heavens is by baking this challah in the shape of a key that will open his heaven so that he too can bless us with the blessing of livelihood as he did to the Jewish people after they left Egypt. That's reason number one. Reason number two, the other reason we have a Shlisol Challah is because the month of Nisan, which we're still in, by the way, until tomorrow night, tonight and tomorrow night and Shabbat is Rosh Chodesh. Tonight and tomorrow is the last day of the month of Nisan, and Shabbat is the first day of the month of Iyar, which is, by the way, a month of healing. Iyar has the acronym, Aleph Yud Yud Reish, as the acronym of a verse in the Torah that says, Ani Hashem Rofecha, which means I am God, your healer. So it's a month of healing, and please God, therefore, during this month, we'll all experience healing, and the coronavirus will be eradicated from our world. But before we welcome the month of Iyar, we are still celebrating the month of Nisan. Nisan is a month of miracles. If Iyar is a month of healing, Nisan is a month of miracles. That's also alluded in the name of Nisan. Nisan means Nes. In Hebrew, it comes from the word Nes. Nes in Hebrew means miracle. And we bake, therefore, a Shlisol Challah to tell God, look, we just experienced the miracle of the grand exodus, but make sure that these miracles continue. And we are reminding you of opening up again the gates of heaven for your miracles with that challah that is baked in the shape of a shlisol, in the shape of a key. Those are the two reasons. One reason is to remind God of the manna so that he can bless us with livelihood also during that same period of time. And the other reason is to remind God of the miracles that he promised for us in the month of Nisan, and he shouldn't just be satisfied with the miracles of Passover, but those miracles should continue even after Passover. Anyhow, that's to answer this question. And again, if you have questions on the answers, feel free to chat them and I'll try to relate to them at the end of the class. Okay, question number two, again, by no particular order. Dear Rabbi, I hope you, this and that, and then we just commemorated Yom HaShoah. Okay, this is a tough question. We just commemorated Yom HaShoah, which was Holocaust Remembrance Day, this past Monday night and Tuesday. The question is this: where was God in the Holocaust? and where is he today? Wow. And what's the purpose of life? So where was God in the Holocaust? Where is he today? I mean, it's a heavy question. And I don't think it's a question, frankly, I can answer. Or I don't think it's a question, as we've mentioned before, any human being can answer. Unless you're a prophet and you can understand the ways of God completely and you can see that which the human eye cannot see, then I don't think we can answer this question. Where was God in the Holocaust and where is he today? I'll provide two answers. Answer number one was the answer of Elie Wiesel. Elie Wiesel actually shares the story of how he too was asked that question. Elie Wiesel, to remind you, is one of the most famous Holocaust survivors who passed away, I think 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. He wrote many, many books. His first book was the book Night, where he shares his own experience in the Holocaust. But Elie Wiesel was once asked that question too, lecturing about the Holocaust. Where was God in the Holocaust? And he said, look, I'm a Holocaust survivor myself. I also have that question. But I have a much more important question. My complaints are not against God. My complaints was against human beings. So my question is, where was man in the Holocaust? Because so many people knew exactly what was happening, yet they did nothing to stop it. Armies could have bombed the railways on the way to Auschwitz and stopped the cattle cars from arriving to those gas chambers and saved many Jews. Individuals in Poland or in other countries saw the atrocities, and they could have, like many righteous of the nations, they could have jumped to come and to save them. Influential politicians could have done some noise and do something again to stop this terrible atrocity. Where was man in the Holocaust? That's a better question to ask. And in that answer that he gave, that Elie Wiesel gave, I think he's sharing one big idea that Judaism has when it comes to those questions of where was God in the Holocaust, where is God in the coronavirus, and where is God when a child dies? Where is God when an innocent person has cancer? These are questions, again, that I don't know if we can answer, but Elie Wiesel is sharing the perspective of, well, let's not focus on what we cannot do. God's department is God's department. That's not something we can involve ourselves with. But let's focus on something we can do. We still have the human being department, and there's still a lot to be done in that department. And if evil happens, then the human being should be the first one to try and stop it. So I can answers on behalf of God. That God has to do. He'll answer us that question maybe one day when Mashiach comes, or maybe not. But God is God. I have to do what I can do as a human being. That's really the Jewish perspective of not asking why, which is a passive question, but asking what can we do about it, which is really an active question, a question that propels us to action. And I know we've spoken about this before. That's perspective number one. Not where was man in the Holocaust, not where was God in the Holocaust, where was man in the Holocaust, because man has to do something when evil happens. If you're silent, then you're a perpetrator of the evil just as much as the evildoer. The second perspective of where was God in the Holocaust is maybe more of a mystical perspective. Not that the first one isn't mystical at all, but a perspective that's adopted very often by the Talmudic sages. And it's a perspective that I don't know if we can apply to every situation. So I'm just giving this context. But the mystical perspective is maybe not ask where was God in the Holocaust, but ask what lesson is it that God wants us to learn from this? What lesson is it that God wants us to learn from the Holocaust? What lesson is it that God wants us to learn from the coronavirus? Because within every challenge, there is a bud of opportunity. And if we do not seize that opportunity, the bud will blossom. That flower will never create a fruit. And the lessons that we ought to learn from the Holocaust, I think, are quite clear. Like we said, to never be silent in the face of evil, to know that we can never rest on our laurels and say, you know what, now we're assimilated, now we're good, now the nation's like, no, we have to carry the Jewish torch out loud because Jewish hatred always exists. There are many lessons, I'm not going to go into them. The lessons from the coronavirus, my personal lessons, is that I think that we were on this rat race pre-coronavirus. No one really paid attention to the things that are truly important in life. And God said, you know what, let me pause this world and maybe try to learn the lessons of what is indeed important, of your values, of your family, of all that is truly dear in life, yet you never had the time to focus on them. That's a lesson. Is that why God created the coronavirus? Again, that I don't know. That's not a question that any human being can answer. But again, there's a lesson to be learned in every tragedy, just as there is a lesson to be learned in every joy and in every positive thing under the sun. So that's a second perspective, not just a call to action, where it was man in the Holocaust, man has to act, but also a call to listen inside to the whisper of the challenge and see what we can learn, what lessons we can draw from it so that we can come out better and stronger people. That's, I was speaking to Rabbi Simon Jacobson today, in fact, and just speaking about that, and I'll go to the next question. Rabbi Simon Jacobson, who spoke to us via Zoom a few weeks ago, and he was here for the Soul Conference. And his lesson, which I find quite beautiful, is that there's this pandemic of disease, and therefore we must create a pandemic of goodness. That's the term he used, a pandemic of goodness. His lesson is that people weren't speaking to each other. And now God has forced us to unite. We're all in this together, regardless of race, creed, and color. And we have to unite, therefore, in kindness with each other, in goodness with each other. We have to create a pandemic of goodness. I love that concept. Okay, that was that question. Okay, next question. Again, according to no particular order. Dear Rabbi, I want to skip the introduction, get to the question. So the question is this. Also a tough question. And this was sent anonymously. That's the question I said that was sent anonymously. So I'm not sure. I mean, I'll have to better answer this question. I'm just going to preface. I would love to meet you and get to know the situation better. But this is the question. Dear Rabbi, our marriage was already suffering before this pandemic. But now that we are living together, it seems like it is getting worse and worse every day. My husband and I fight about almost anything, and the tension is high. Unfortunately, there is no outlet and nowhere to go. How should we deal with marriage problems during this time? So, unfortunately, it's not the first time during this coronavirus that I'm approached with this question. Indeed, I think any challenge in life makes relationships either stronger if they were strong to begin with, or weaker if they were weak to begin with. I think, by the way, it's true for relationship, not just versus our spouse. I think it's true with our relationship versus God. If there's a challenge and we were anchored in faith and our relationship with God was strong, that challenge will only bolster our relationship with God and increase the hope and faith that we have in Him. If our relationship was weak and we had no real faith, it will shatter that relationship too. It's true with the relationship, and I'm going to get to I'm not running away from the question. I'm going to get to the question, but it's true for the relationship we have towards ourselves. If our relationship with myself, if I was comfortable in my own skin before this virus or before any challenge, this challenge will only bolster not just my comfort, my drive, my ability to take up my skills and my talents, bolster the relationship that I have with the person I see in the mirror each and every day. If the relationship with myself, if I had issues with myself before a challenge, then this challenge comes and gives me a real knock on the head and also creates some type of earthquake within. So it's true with any relationships. And that's the first thing I would say to this woman, that it's normal. Don't think that it's so, out of the world what you're experiencing. That's what challenges do. The question is, what can you do about it? Okay, so I would love to get to know the situation. I believe that every marriage is different. Every human being is different. And therefore I have to get to know the situation better. But I would say this. I would say two things. Number one, like we just said, in every challenge, there's an opportunity. And I think that, yes, now we're living with each other, but maybe this is an opportunity to get to know each other better. Maybe the reason your marriage is suffering like it is in so many instances is because you really never got to know each other. I've met so many couples that they got married, they fell in love, and then they got busy with work, or they got busy having children, And after 25 years, 30 years, they get divorced. One second, you were married for 30 years. And the reason very often is not because one cheated on the other or anything like that. It's because they really never get to know each other. And they each grew separately in their own way. That's what life does to us. We grow from life. But they started here. And because they really never kept this communication going, they grew apart. The children got in the way. The businesses got in the way. Life got in the way. And eventually, they became so apart that even after 30 years of quote unquote marriage, they now got divorced. So I would say that even within this challenge of living together, and I know you wrote that the tension is high, even within that challenge, there's a great opportunity. Well, maybe now is a good time to get to know each other. Maybe that's the reason this is happening. Maybe now is a good time to get to know what your weaknesses and strengths are, to get to know what your talents and skills are, to get to know what your buttons that are sensitive are, whatever they may be. So I would say that within every challenge, there's an opportunity. Maybe now God is the opportunity, the world is shut down, to get to know and to dig within each other, and maybe make times for yourselves, each and every day, quality times for yourself. I don't know if you have children, you don't write about that, but quality times for yourself to, whether you have children or not, maybe after the bedtime, maybe before the bedtime, whenever you, to get to simply sit down and shut down the screens or anything else and just get to know each other. That's one. Two, I will also say that when we live together, we have to be reminded of the most important element in marriage. And that's also a general thing. But I think the most important element in marriage is not necessarily love. The Beatles were wrong. Love is not all we need. That's not right. According to the Talmud, the most important element in marriage is respect. In fact, the Talmud teaches us in the Tractate of Sotah that a person should love his spouse as he loves himself, but he should respect his spouse, his or her spouse, more than he respects himself. Now, if you think about this, love and respect are two opposite emotions. When I love someone, I want to come close to them. We spoke about this a little bit yesterday in the Happiness Hour. I want to come close to them. But when I respect someone, I keep my distance a little bit. I have this awe. So it creates two separate emotions. But respect is more important. Why? Because in a way, keeping your distance is indeed a little more important than coming together. Why am I saying that? Because love makes you come together. Why? Because it's attracted to that which you have in common with the other. You love sports, I love sports, let's go to a sports game. You love good food, I love good food, let's have a good dinner together. You love this TV series, I love this TV series. You love Farah, I love Farah, let's watch it together, great. But respect does not speak to the commonalities between one another. Respect speaks specifically towards the differences. I can't understand you, therefore I can love that thing that I'm seeing in you, but I can respect it. I ought to keep my distance. And sometimes tension in marriage, as you write here, tension in marriage is created because we love too much. And then we're on top of each other too much. But there's no respect. The other person feels like he's being suffocated because he's not allowed to be. What if I have a difference that you don't like? Oh, no, that love is going to suffocate it. No, but relationships is about allowing the other to be fully, wholesomely. And therefore, I think that especially when we live together now, when we're all on top of each other, that we ought to create moments of respect, moments in which we give each other our own space. I think that's very important. Maybe men need that more than women. Maybe women need that more than men. But I think it's very important to infuse respect in marriage, especially during those times, to allow the other to be. And maybe, again, this is an opportunity. I'm saying specifically here to this woman who wrote to me. Maybe there's an opportunity to understand what are the differences between you and your husband. Maybe create a list. Oh, I like steak. You're vegetarian. There's a difference right there. I love sports. You hate sports. I love piano. You hate the sound of piano. Whatever it may be, create a list of differences and see how you can start creating this respect towards those differences that you have towards one another, but not just to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to put earbuds while you're playing the piano because I can't stay playing, but quite opposite. Respect means not just keeping a distance, but in a way encouraging, oh, you love piano? I hate it, but because I respect you so much, I'm gonna buy you a piano. I'm gonna buy you some notes for you to play. Encourage that talent because I respect the whole you. And I'm married to the whole you, not just to the part I love. So that's for that answer. And again, I'm saying to this woman, I'd love to get to know you if you want, and to try to help you on a deeper level so that I get the full picture. Okay, next question. Dear Rabbi, I'm going to skip the introduction again, and then, as you know, I'm single and I live alone. This loneliness has been killing me. Please share some advice. So I will begin by saying that, giving a spiritual answer to this, saying that as alone as we feel, we are never alone. In fact, Alex Geiser will tell you, I've asked my students at Pardes many times that if they know what the statistics say about how many times a person is filmed during the day. Do you know how many times a person here in America is filmed on an average during a day? About 150 times, well, pre-coronavirus. Why? Because you go to the gas station, you filmed. You go out to the street, you film. The camera's filming you all the time, no matter where you are. You walk into your children's school, you film. You walk here, a congregation met the tefillah, you film. You filmed all the time. And they are like stunned. Their first reaction is just a pleasure to watch because they go, what? Really? No way. That's such an invasion of our privacy. But then my punchline comes and I say to them, 1 second, you think you're being filmed 140 times and it's giving you such panic? There's a camera that films you 24/7, and not just in the streets, but in your bedroom too. Do you know what camera? The camera of God himself. God is watching you all the time, and that's the only camera that counts. Now, why am I saying this as an answer? Because yes, as alone as we may feel, we have to know that God is with us. And not only God, but I believe also, and that relates to another question I received, but you know, the Kabbalah, the Zohar, the foremost book of Kabbalah teaches that with every mitzvah that we do in this world, a good angel is created. And that angel stays with us all the time. So I'm sure you have many thousands of angels with you. You're not alone. So that's point number one I'll make. Just remember that you're not alone. God is, feel free to speak to him. Just like you would have if you had a roommate. If you had a spouse with you and you would speak with them and have coffee with them, have coffee with God. Speak with them. Speak with God. He's there. He's listening. You're not alone. And you're not crazy. I saw today a banner that says, from psychiatrists, that says something like, please don't call us. It's totally normal during these days to be speaking to your walls, to be speaking to your chairs, speaking to your furniture. It's totally normal. Only call us if they speak back to you. But so I'm saying it's totally normal, and it's actually encouraged to speak to God because he's there with you, even in your bedroom. That's number one. Number two, there are ways, not to be much more practical, less spiritual. There are ways to come out of our loneliness. Look, go to cbtvirtualworld.com and join our classes like many of you have joined right now. Join our services and be a part of something that's greater than you, of a community that Baruch Hashem is still thriving. Number three, I think that the feeling of aloneness, of loneliness, it's two separate things, but both of those feelings very often stem from this dissatisfaction of our soul. You see, we're each given a soul, and that soul is here to do good in this world. And when it doesn't do good, it feels alone. It feels ignored. It feels abandoned. I'm all alone. Hello, I'm shouting to you. Please use me. I'm telling you to do good. I'm telling you to pray. I'm telling you to give charity. I'm telling you to help someone else. And you're not listening to me. You're only listening to your body. You're only listening to the good ice cream that your body wants and to the nice nap that your body wants. What about the soul? And the soul feels, therefore, very lonely. And that feeling of loneliness that the soul has starts to creep in, starts to affect the mind. Now, therefore, I think the third remedy to loneliness and aloneness is doing good. Don't just join Zoom, and don't just speak to God and put him on the face him on the couch that you're putting him on, but also start doing good. Be kind. There's so many opportunities that you can do, even within the confines of your home. You can call people, broken relationship. Call people that you might or might not know that are elderly, vulnerable, and give them a good word. Cheer them up. Go online and start writing emails to people, to those vulnerable. Give charity. And if you can't come out of your house, and of course with all the safety measures that are needed, and you have to listen to the CDC and to the health department and follow all of the rules without any exception. But if you can come out of the house and wear all the masks that needed and go and volunteer. I just saw actually an email someone forwarded me this week of the JFCS. They're looking for volunteers for certain things, and I'm happy to send it to you. Then go and do it. I promise you, then your soul won't be feeling alone anymore. And that loneliness that it is triggering will be gone. And very often that's one way of curing our own aloneness or loneliness. Okay, next question. Okay, dear Rabbi, I hear you speaking more and more about the Mashiach and the Messianic era. What is it? And does this pandemic have anything to do with it? Okay, I don't know if I'm speaking more and more. I've always spoken about Mashiach, maybe more and more. Yeah, maybe it's true. Maybe during Passover, I spoke about it a lot. I really had a strong feeling that Mashiach would come during Passover. I've admitted that. And he deceived me big time. But that just means, the fact that he didn't come means that we haven't done enough to bring him. So the ball is on me and the ball is on us in our court. But what does it mean? What is it? What is Mashiach? And does this pandemic have anything to do with it? So Mashiach, really, people are not really are afraid a little bit of this concept of Mashiach. First, because it's the unknown, but also because they don't know what it is, and they think they have all these ideas that are false. Mashiach, I want to make it clear, as Maimonides makes it clear, does not come to change anything in the world. We'll still have Zoom classes and physical face-to-face classes. We'll still have our iPhones and our Facebooks and our Twitter. We'll still have TVs at home and laptops in our offices. We'll still have all of that. Nothing is changing. What Mashiach is coming to do, Mashiach, yes, is a human being that will come and announce the news of our redemption. But what Mashiach will come to do is change and shift our consciousness. Our consciousness will be much higher, much more in tune with God. And we each feel our consciousness is elevated throughout our lives many times. I'm sure those of you who have children know that when your children are born, when your child was born, your consciousness was as elevated as could be. There's no greater feeling than that. When you go to the Western Wall, many of you, if you've gone to the Western Wall, you've touched those stones and felt the tears of our nation, then all of a sudden, your consciousness changes. Sometimes you wake up in the morning with a spiritual awakening saying, you know what, I was toxic. I'm getting rid of this toxicity. I'm only going to do good. God, I'm with you today. That's a change of consciousness. Now, when Mashiach comes, that level of consciousness will exist 24/7. And therefore, this era of Mashiach is an era of peace, an era of goodness. Because when human beings have that level of consciousness, no one wants to do bad. Evil has to go, has to be expelled. It can't stand that brightness of light, that brightness of consciousness. That's really what Mashiach is. In the words of the prophet, that in the prophet Isaiah speaks about this, and when Mashiach comes, the knowledge of God, that consciousness of God will fill the world like the water fills the sea, like the water of oceans fill the oceans. That's that level of consciousness that we'll have. That's really what Mashiach is. Why am I speaking about it more and more? Because with every day that passes, we are just closer to that day. You know, there's a direction to our world, a global direction. And that global direction has been, of the world, has been moving forward from day one, from creation. And with each and every mitzvah that we do, we move the world forward a little bit towards that final destination. Abraham and Sarah started it, or maybe even before, Adam and Eve started it. And everyone in their own generation pushed the world a little further. Think of a soccer ball. The world is round after all. Each time you do a mitzvah, you kick the soccer ball a little more and a little more. And we've had, thank God, so many righteous that have kicked that soccer ball so much. We've had so many tragedies where people have sacrificed their lives just because they were Jewish. That was a huge kick. And now we're getting closer and closer to the goal. Each time we do a mitzvah, my friends, we're kicking that ball even closer. And I'm speaking about this more and more because I really think that that's it. We even passed the penalty kick. If you like soccer, I'm a big fan. The penalty mark is very close to the goal. I think we passed that already. We're in the square of the goalie. And we just need to kick the ball a few more times with our mitzvahs and we'll reach the goal. All right, 2 more questions here. Dear Rabbi, I hope you're well, staying healthy, okay. All right, this question is as follows. I am so embarrassed by those Jews that insist on congregating. The media is all over them and it's giving us Jews such a bad name. I know that there aren't too many of them, but what can be done about those fools endangering others? I agree, it's tremendously embarrassing. I think they're sinning many sins, not just the sins of endangering others, like you rightfully point out. They're sinning the sin of Chilul Hashem, desecrating God's name. And it's saddening, to say the least, to see how people of our own are breaking these rules. I think it's connected to something bigger. Not judging anyone, but they have to be put in place. And by the way, if you know anyone that is breaking the law, you should call them out. Don't be afraid. This is life and death we're dealing with. So don't be afraid to call out people, whether it's your friends, your family members. That must be done. We're dealing with Pikuach Nefesh. But first, let me say that these people are not representative, I think, of the Jewish people in general, or of humanity in general. There's crazy fools in every segment of humanity. And I think that these are crazy fools in our segment of the Jewish people. But I will say this, I think it's connected to something deeper, and that's because, unfortunately, these people are religious, quote unquote. I think it's connected to this idea that religion means that you have a hat on, that you have a beard, that you put on tefillin, and that you pray 3 times a day, and that you're very careful about Shabbat. And yes, it means all of that too. But we're so stuck sometimes in the rituals that we forget that it doesn't mean just that. Yes, it means tefillin. Yes, it means Shabbat. Yes, it means keeping kosher, and they keep the highest level. Yes. But it also means respecting humanity, respecting human beings. It also means doing your business with honesty. It also means listening to health experts and not endangering others. It also means being a mensch. It also means being a good citizen in society. That means so much more than all of these important rituals. I often say to people, I am approached very often, unfortunately, and you can spread the word so that people don't make that mistake, but very often approached by people saying, you know, Rabbi, I'm not religious, but whatever. I'm not religious, but. And my answer almost consistently is that, excuse me, 1 second, do you respect your parents? They tell me yes. Do you conduct your business honestly? Yes, we're no crooks. Do you respect people? Yes. I said to them, you're very religious. That is also part of religion, of the Jewish religion. It's not just the tefillin. Yes, that's also important. I'm not negating any side of it. But I think if we're looking at the big picture, that is also being religious. And unfortunately, there is a small segment of Jews who think that religion is only rituals. It's only A, B, and C. What about D, E, and F? No, that's not part of it. And they have to be called out. And I think it's our part, in a way, again, like we said at the very beginning, instead of asking, why are these Jews? So let's be more Jewish. Let's show the world that we are even more mentions. I think for every Bernie Madoff, we have an Albert Einstein. And not that Albert Einstein was such a mensch in his life, but at least he was a Nobel Prize called the scientist of the century, etc. But and I think every time we meet a Bernie Madoff or we meet a Jew like that, it has to make us want to be that Einstein, to be that light unto the nations. It just has to increase. When we meet darkness, we have to increase our light. So that's another side of this answer. And that is that, yes, it drives us crazy. It embarrasses us. These people don't get what Judaism really is about. It's not about just one side of the picture. It's about the whole picture, including being mentioned. But when we face that, then it must propel us to be even more Jewish, to increase our light even more so. Okay, last question. By the way, I'm just reminded of this because it relates to this. You know, Rabbi Steinsaltz, my dear rabbi, it comes from a very secular family. His parents were irreligious, to say the least. Again, religion, Judaism is not a religion. I'm using the word religion too much and I hate it. But they were very secular, quote unquote. They didn't observe the rituals of the mitzvot. And Rabbi Steinsaltz, at the age of 14, made a 180 degree, and he started learning Torah and learning yeshiva, and he still became a chemist, etc., but he became, quote unquote, religious. Now, even though Rabbi Steinsaltz, again, wears a beard and has the whole Hasidic garb, and he's the most open-minded man in the world, but he told me, he shared with me a line once about his father of blessed memory again, was not apparently religious in any shape or form. He shared with me a line that I'm reminded of as we speak about this. And he said, look, he said to me, Penny, I want you to know, I am much more religious than my father ever was. But my father was much more Jewish than I ever will be. And I'll conclude with that sentence, this answer. Okay, last question right here. I'll share the first part, even though I know it's personal. I won't mention the name, of course, because I keep all these questions anonymous. But dear Rabbi, I cannot take the smile off my face as I am writing this. It was a very interesting experience while I was listening to your class on the 13th Petal Rose yesterday. And then the bird came, and this bird was truly listening to the class. It was such a beautiful moment to feel such interconnectedness, especially during these outwardly challenging times. Basically, a bird came and stayed there during the class, and I really believe, it reminded me, and that's why I'm sharing this, it reminded me of the story of Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, the 16th century Kabbalist, the Arizal, who also was giving a class one day in the fields, and all of a sudden a dog came, and the students tried to kick the dog away. Go away, you're bothering us. And Rabbi Yitzchak Luria says, no, let the dog stay, let the dog. So the dog stayed the entire class. After the class, the dog left and it collapsed and it died. And then everyone was wondering, who was this dog? Why did Rabbi Yitzchak Luria ask us to have him stay? And Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, the Kabbalist, said, well, you don't understand, this dog actually had a Jewish soul in him. And the Jewish soul was never exposed to Torah. And it came back to this world for all sorts of reasons. But one of the things was that it really never, so when it heard Torah, it knew that it was one of the things he needed to rectify in this world. Now that he rectified it, he could die and go back to heaven, and that's why he died. But I guess you never know. Sometimes we see animals, we see birds. They might have some souls in them. Who knows if that had a soul? And that's one thing, an reincarnation of a soul, so to speak. We do believe in reincarnation. Another thing is that, and then I'll get to the question, that the Zohar says that our beloved, us, the souls of our relatives that are no longer in this world, communicate with us, still very much alive in our lives. They still continue to communicate with us in this world and to watch over us and bless us. Now, how do they communicate? That's the question the Zohar asks. Sometimes through dreams, but sometimes they're carried by birds. I think I've mentioned this to some of you. I can't tell you how many times I've officiated at weddings, and all of a sudden a bird lands on the canopy, on the chuppah canopy of the bride and the groom. And to me, there's no question in my mind that those are the relatives being carried by this bird of the bride and the groom, that are coming to participate in their descendants' joy. So it might have been also a bird that was carrying souls, who knows? And that's why it was so attentive to the class. But this is the question. Talking about challenging times, I had a question from a previous class. It is extremely difficult to see people who have COVID-19 die alone. And sorry, the question is cut off here. Thankfully, I was extremely comforted by the fact that you saw the Rebbe's light when you were young. And the question is about this aloneness. You know what? I'm going to pull this out just to be accurate about the question. It got cut off in the printing. So this is the question here. Okay, talking about challenging times, I had a question from a previous class. It is extremely difficult to see people who have COVID-19 die alone. Thankfully, I was extremely comforted by the fact that you said that people do not die alone, but there are angels who take them from one world to the next. I would like more explanation, and also want to know if this is written in the Torah or some other text, or if this is coming just from your own personal experience. That's the question. No, it's not coming from my own personal experience. I try not to make up things or not to share my personal experience. They shouldn't be of interest to anyone. They're probably not interesting at all anyhow, but it is coming from the Zohar, and it is coming directly from the Zohar. It is coming from the writings of Nachmanides, who came before, came before the Kabbalists of Tzfat in the 16th century, that also speak about it. Nachmanides of the 13th century, that when we die, we are escorted by angels. And as mentioned before, there are two types of angels. One type we mentioned before, and those are the angels that were created through our good deeds in this world. With every mitzvah that we do, an angel is created, and it escorts us in this world and in the next. There are other angels, and those are angels that God sends. Sometimes he sends real angels, like the angel Michael, angel Raphael, angel Gabriel. He has these angels for the righteous. It says that the whole Pamalia Shel Mala, that's what it says. The whole heavenly entourage of God, of angels, are sent to escort a righteous man from this world to the next. So sometimes it's not just the angels that we created, but it's angels that God sends. And these angels are also human beings that once upon a time existed in this world. But very often the righteous come also to escort us into the next world, to almost hold our hand, to be sort of our tour guide for the world to come. And they could be righteous people from our own family lineage that is spoken of. And it also could be just righteous people. I really believe that the Lubavitcher Rebbe, he was a passionate lover of every Jew. And I think that the Lubavitcher Rebbe greets every Jew when they come to heaven. That is from my imagination. But the fact that the righteous come to greet Jews and to greet others, not just Jews, that's part of the teachings of Kabbalah. So yes, we do not die alone. So as hard as it is to see people dying alone, and it is hard, and I'm not taking that away, but we have to know that spiritually they're not dying alone. They have two types of angels: angels that they created that are with them, and angels that God sends, whether it's his angels himself, themselves, or whether it's souls that come and greet those people as they transition from this world to the next. All right, friends, I want to open this up. Thank you again for all your questions. Please continue to send them. We'll have this class again next week. You can chat, you can text me these questions via chat. I received here two questions. One, more of a technical one. I am interested in helping at JFCS. However, I'm concerned about going out. If you're concerned about going out, don't go. I understand. Your health comes first. We've said that before. Our health it comes first. If you want to consult with health experts, I'm no health expert, so I can't tell you. But if you want to consult with doctors and health experts, whether it's safe for you to go out, maybe you can do that. Otherwise, if you're too concerned, then your health comes first. don't worry about it. You're doing a mitzvah by protecting yourself. So you're doing a mitzvah either way. Number 2. How about the eagles flying over? That's right. Well, that's right. The Bernsteins are here, Bob and Debbie, and I had the great honor and pleasure of officiating at their son's bar mitzvah Max in Whitefish, Montana. And all of a sudden, in the middle of ceremony, there was a bald eagle that came, flew over us, and left. And again, just like I explained with the chuppah, with the birds landing on the chuppah canopy, I really believe, I have no doubt, in my mind, it's like as clear as could be. I have no doubt that those eagles were also carrying the souls of your relatives, Bob and Debbie, and of Max, of course. And they came to participate in your joy, to share their blessings. Beautiful. Any other questions? I'm going to unpin my video so I can try and see you all. But does anyone have a question? Yeah, you can chat it or you can speak it. No? Okay. No one. Fine. All right, friends. So I'm going to wish you a good night. And I want to remind you that tonight and tomorrow and Shabbat is Rosh Chodesh. It's a cause of great celebration. It's a day of great joy and of great light. It brings newness to our world. It says that there's a new light for each and every month. That's why the word for month in Hebrew, Chodesh, is the same word as the word for newness, Chadash, because there's a new light that comes to our world with each Chodesh. That new light should be a light of healing, a light of goodness, a light of good health, and of joy for each and every one of us, for entire humanity. And yes, like we said before, that light should be the last kick of that ball, and it should bring us to the Messianic era and finally have Mashiach reveal himself. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.